Are you about to select the wrong managed IT partner? As an IT director, it's easy to overlook the subtle but important differences between managed service providers. In this video, I'm going to lay out some of the critical pieces that you absolutely don't want to miss. Hello, and welcome to this video series that helps you navigate critical IT decisions and use IT services to your advantage. I'm Justin Eckstein, and I have about 2 decades of IT experience, about half of which has been spent in the world of managed IT services. About every week, I talk to a prospective customer who's frustrated with their current IT provider, and usually it boils down to one or more of 3 things. It's poor service, a recent cybersecurity breach, or they're looking to save money. Have you ever heard the good, fast, cheap analogy? You get to pick 2. That's essentially what we're talking about here. You can have good and fast. That generally means it's not going to be cheap, right? So when we're talking about managed IT services in that context, inexpensive provider may struggle with something like service quality or maybe bringing all of the appropriate cybersecurity tools to the table. There may also be things like hidden costs or service limitations that really don't show up until later. On the flip side, a provider that offers top-tier service and prioritizes full spectrum security is unlikely to be the least expensive among the bunch. And if someone claims that they can be all 3, cheap, secure, and offer excellent service, you need to dig a little bit deeper and ask some of the hard questions. More than likely, there's something missing there. Have you ever had to call in to a service desk when you really needed help and you just simply couldn't get in touch with anybody that could actually help you? I know I recently had that experience. It was honestly very frustrating and kind of scary. I got locked out of some financial accounts that I had because I forgot a password naturally, and I couldn't get the password reset function to work. It was broken. I wasn't getting the emails to reset the password and all of that, so I couldn't get in there, and I was worried that I would lose access to this account. I thought, I'll just call support and get a human on the phone and maybe get some help, but that wasn't even an option because, again, I wasn't paying for help necessarily. They did have a little chat bot though that I could interact with, which is great if you want to talk to a robot, but I don't generally enjoy talking to robots. And I got pretty frustrated because it kept telling me to just use the password reset feature that wasn't working. I'm sure we've all had similar experiences to that. And I think what was most frustrating was this was like real dollars and cents to me that I was potentially going to lose, and was really worried about it. And it was a Friday night. I had better things to do other than deal with this. The other thing is it took hours to get this resolved too. So cheap doesn't necessarily mean good or fast, right? So I think that's the thing we need to take home here is, what do we really ideally want our service to look like, and what are we willing to do to get there? I think it's important to understand that really no 2 managed IT service providers are the same, and that can make it really challenging to compare them or know what's truly best for your business, especially if you just really don't even know what questions to ask or what to look for. So from how services are delivered to how they're priced to knowing how your systems and your data are protected, there are really endless ways that these things get structured and put together. So you have to understand what questions to ask and what to look for. And it's best to do some self-reflection and understand what's most important to you when you're working through this process. So I'm going to lay out some examples of questions that you can ask. And it might help get the gears turning on what really matters to you and what you need to ask pointed questions about. So some examples are, what are the actual support hours? Not every service desk is the same. They're not all 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. They have different hours. They might include things like after hours or weekends or holidays. Some don't. They might charge extra for that kind of thing. The location of the service desk isn't always the same either. Sometimes You might be working with a local service provider. They've got people in your area that can come help if needed. Some service providers outsource their help desk to maybe even another country, for example. So it's simply not the same experience, and that's why you need to ask these questions. Because does being a number matter to you, or do you want to work with somebody local where you might build a relationship and have somebody be able to be on site when you really need them? Another important question to ask is, how do they monitor and protect your most valuable data? So start thinking about where your organization puts your data, maybe your customer information or your financial information. Where does that get stored? And how will service providers protect that information? Will they even be able to protect it? Those are the kinds of questions that I think you really need to start asking yourself. And then from a service standpoint, just really understanding what you want it to look like, so we can relate back to, I don't want to interact with a chat bot or a robot. I want to talk to a person. And if that's my expectation, I need to clearly state that, so that I can explain, I expect to be able to get somebody on the phone personally. Is that what you offer, or is it just email only interaction, which maybe that's delayed and just not going to work for you? Another thing to understand is what's not included in their pricing. Are there certain exceptions that you need to think about, or things that are commonly out of scope? So most service providers won't include things like projects, but you might need to ask what's considered a project. Is something like setting up a new PC included, or not? Other things that you need to think about are, when it comes to things like after hours or weekends, are those additional charges? Is having an on-site presence included, or is that an additional charge? Those are all things that can really make maybe an inexpensive provider on the face not all that inexpensive down the road. I think it's also important to understand whether or not you're working with a local company, because that can make a huge difference. Not only the ability just to get somebody on site in the event that maybe you're having some issue that can't be solved over the phone, but having a real relationship with somebody, and that's maybe active in your community, and also being able to just help you and maybe partake in your events and those kinds of things. I think that makes a huge difference, because you can actually build a relationship there. And if things aren't going well, maybe you can actually get those things resolved rather than feeling like you're calling some corporate office that really doesn't care about you. I know I've always had a much better experience working with a local business, like a small community bank, rather than one of the big corporate conglomerates. You tend to just get more personal support and that kind of thing, which that's the most important thing to me. I think it's also important to know whether your provider is going to be very proactive, or if they're going to be on the more reactive side of things. I think we all have different expectations there. In some cases, we might just expect that, if it's broke, I just need somebody to call to fix it. And in other cases, maybe we need to have somebody that's preventing the thing from getting broken in the first place. Maybe they're monitoring for something like a small performance issue that could really become a problem down the road. So let's prevent that from snowballing into something much greater. In my opinion, this is really a service business. It's called managed IT services, after all. So the most important thing to focus on is the service delivery and what you want that to look like. If the service delivery and how you're interacting with them does not align with your expectations, then at the end of the day, even a low price isn't going to be a bargain for you. Too many businesses that I see chase savings, and then they end up stuck with a provider that just doesn't deliver and doesn't meet their expectations. And then when that happens, you're usually left wondering, why are we paying for anything at all? Why am I even spending $5 on this provider? Because I'm getting $0 worth of effort. It's kind of like hiring a security guard who's asleep on the job, right? I think we've all maybe spent money on something and then just felt like we're not getting any value out of it. It's also like paying for like all those subscription services. You forget you even have them because they're not bringing you any value at the end of the day, but they are impacting your bank account, and we usually just end up canceling those at some point because we're not getting anything out of them. So understand really what you want and what you're looking for, and then from there you can start to build that value for your business and assign a dollar amount to it that fits within your budget. The emotional cost of poor service, that's something that usually hits me. Again, I've referenced that I usually expect to be able to call somebody on the phone and talk to an actual person. I mean, we've all experienced poor customer service before, whether that's in person or on a chatbot or something like that. For me, when I experience poor service, I start to think about how that's impacting my life, my coworkers, my family, my friends, because it's taking away things like time, money, and time is money anymore. So when we're getting that, what we feel is a poor customer experience, it tends to explode into something much more than what it could have been. So that's, at the end of the day, I think why we need to focus so much on that, because it can influence our lives in so many different ways. Thanks for watching today's video. If you want help finding the right IT service provider, download our free guide. The link is in the description.